Uruguay should not be one of football's most important national teams if you only look at population, geography, or modern sporting economics. It is a small country between Argentina and Brazil, two neighbors with enormous football cultures and far larger player pools. Yet Uruguay's national team, known as La Celeste, built a record that made FIFA describe it as football's first global powerhouse. That phrase is not just romantic history. Uruguay won world titles before the World Cup had even become the sport's central event, then won the first World Cup, then shocked Brazil in one of the most famous matches ever played. The story of Uruguay is the story of a small nation that used football to project identity, pride, and excellence far beyond its size. Uruguay's international football story began early. The national team played its first international match in 1902 and became part of the institutional foundation of South American football. Its football association was a founding member of CONMEBOL in 1916 and joined FIFA in 1923, placing Uruguay close to the center of the sport's global development. At this stage, international football was still being organized, defined, and tested. Tournaments did not yet have the polished hierarchy fans recognize today. That gave ambitious countries a chance to shape the game's future. Uruguay arrived in that era with a strong domestic football culture and a national team capable of competing beyond South America. Its sky blue shirt became more than a uniform. It became a symbol of a country that intended to be taken seriously. The nickname La Celeste means the sky blue, and it captures the visual identity of the team. Another nickname, Los Charruas, connects the side to ideas of toughness and resistance. Over time, these names helped create a national football personality. Uruguay teams were expected to be technically capable, tactically intelligent, emotionally intense, and difficult to break. This identity became especially powerful because Uruguay often faced opponents with more people, more resources, or more international attention. In that context, football became a national equalizer. A match was not only a sporting contest, it was a way of proving that Uruguay could stand beside or above bigger nations. That attitude became one of the recurring themes of the team's history. Uruguay's first great global breakthrough came at the 1924 Olympic football tournament in Paris. Today, Olympic football is often viewed as separate from the Senior World Cup tradition, but in the 1920s the situation was different. The tournament was directly organized by FIFA, open to professionals, and functioned as a senior world championship-level event. Uruguay arrived in Europe as a mystery to many observers, but it quickly changed how people saw South American football. The team's passing, movement, control, and confidence surprised European audiences. In the final, Uruguay defeated Switzerland 3-0. The victory was decisive, but the deeper impact was cultural. Uruguay had crossed the Atlantic and shown that world-class football was not limited to Europe. The 1928 Olympic tournament in Amsterdam confirmed that Uruguay's success was not a one-time surprise. Once again, Uruguay reached the final, and this time the opponent was Argentina. That made the match much more than a contest for a trophy. Argentina and Uruguay share the Rio de la Plata region, cultural similarities, and one of the oldest rivalries in international football. Their meetings feel like battles between close relatives who understand each other too well. Uruguay won the final 2-1, claiming a second consecutive FIFA-organized Olympic title. By doing so, it established a pattern. Uruguay was not merely competitive on the world stage, it could repeatedly win the biggest matches. Before the World Cup existed, Uruguay had already become a world champion twice. In 1930, the FIFA World Cup was born, and Uruguay was chosen to host the first edition in Montevideo. The timing was symbolic. Uruguay had already won the two previous global football tournaments and was celebrating a national centenary. The Estadio Centenario became the centerpiece of the event, a stadium built not just for matches, but for a statement of national ambition. Uruguay reached the decisive match, and once again Argentina stood in its path. The final carried the weight of rivalry, history, and the pressure of hosting the world's first World Cup. Uruguay won 4-2. With that result, La Celeste became the first FIFA World Cup champion and completed an extraordinary sequence, 1924, 1928, and 1930, 3 world titles in 3 major tournaments entered. One of the most remarkable parts of Uruguay's early dominance is how long it lasted in World Championship matches. From the 1924 Olympics until the 1954 World Cup semifinal, Uruguay did not lose a match in the World Championship tournaments it played. That is a 30-year unbeaten run in the events that defined global football at the time. Uruguay did not participate in the 1934 and 1938 World Cups, so the streak includes absence as well as competition, but the point remains powerful. Whenever Uruguay appeared on that stage, it was extraordinarily difficult to defeat. This helped build the mythology around the team. Uruguay became associated with competitive certainty, as if the shirt itself carried a memory of victory. The most famous expression of that mythology came in 1950, in Brazil. The final match of the World Cup was played at the Maracanazo in Rio de Janeiro, with an official attendance of 173,850 people, still remembered as the highest official attendance for a football match. Brazil was the host, the favorite, and needed only to avoid defeat to become world champion. Uruguay was expected to play the role of opponent in Brazil's celebration. Instead, Uruguay came from behind and won 2-1. The match became known as the Maracanazo, a word that still carries emotional weight in football history. For Brazil, it was heartbreak. For Uruguay, it was proof that pressure, crowd size, and expectation could be turned against the favorite. Uruguay's 4 stars are one of the most important details on its crest. Many fans assume national team stars only represent World Cup wins, and Uruguay has 2 FIFA World Cup titles, from 1930 and 1950. But Uruguay wears 4 stars because FIFA approved recognition of the 1924 and 1928 Olympic football titles as FIFA-organized World Championships. This is why the stars are not just decoration. They are a history lesson. They show that Uruguay's world status began before the World Cup became the sport's main tournament. The crest preserves an older chapter of football's global development, when the Olympic football tournament served as the highest international stage. Uruguay's shirt therefore carries an argument. Its first 2 world titles still belong in the official story. Uruguay also has a unique FIFA-recognized title connected to the 1980 World Champions Gold Cup, also known as the Mundialito. After winning that competition, Uruguay was formally recognized by FIFA as champion of world champions. This is an unusual distinction, and it adds another layer to the country's international identity. It does not replace the World Cup or the Copa América, but it reinforces how often Uruguay's history intersects with special, symbolic competitions. Uruguay is not just a team with isolated moments of success. It is a national side repeatedly connected to football's major milestones: early Olympic World Championships, the first World Cup, the Maracanazo, and a tournament designed to gather world champions. Few countries have a story so tightly woven into football's institutional memory. In South America, Uruguay's greatness is measured through the Copa América as much as through the World Cup. Uruguay won the inaugural edition of the tournament in 1916 and has won it 15 times. That record places it among the most successful teams in the competition's history. The Copa América matters because it is not a lightweight regional event. It is the oldest major international football tournament, and South America has produced many of the sport's strongest national teams. To win repeatedly in that environment requires more than one golden generation. It requires continuity, tactical resilience, and an ability to survive matches where rivalry and emotion can be as important as form. Uruguay's most recent Copa América title came in 2011, showing that the tradition remained alive in the modern era. Uruguay's rivalries explain much of the emotional power behind its football. Against Argentina, the rivalry is known as the Clásico del Río de la Plata. It is built on proximity, shared culture, and a long history of finals and defining matches. Against Brazil, the relationship is shaped by the 1950 World Cup and the memory of the Maracanazo. These rivalries are different in tone. Argentina is the close mirror, the neighbor with a similar football language. Brazil is the giant, the artistic superpower Uruguay once silenced in its own stadium. Both rivalries help define Uruguay's self-image. La Celeste is rarely just playing for a result. It is often defending a historic role, the smaller nation that refuses to be intimidated by anyone. Modern Uruguay has not always dominated world football, but it has remained far more relevant than its size would suggest. The team reached second place in the FIFA World Ranking in June 2012 and has reached the top of the World Football ELO ratings on multiple occasions. Its home is still the Estadio Centenario, a stadium linked to the birth of the World Cup. Since 2023, Uruguay has been coached by Marcelo Bielsa, a manager known for intensity, structure, and demanding football. His appointment fits the larger pattern of a country constantly trying to renew its competitive edge. Uruguay's legacy is not only about old trophies. It is about a football culture that keeps producing belief, discipline, and elite talent from a limited population base. The reason Uruguay matters is simple: it proves that football history is not written only by the biggest countries. Uruguay became a global power by arriving early, organizing seriously, playing boldly, and winning matches that shaped the mythology of the sport. It won FIFA-organized Olympic titles, won the first World Cup, stunned Brazil at the Maracanazo, built one of the strongest Copa América records, and carried 4 stars as a reminder of a unique path through football history. La Celeste is more than a successful national team. It is a symbol of how identity and competitive culture can multiply a country's influence. Uruguay may be small on the map, but in football memory, it is enormous. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.